In this video, we're going to go through how to do a compression test using a 1999 Honda Civic with a 1.6 liter VTEC engine. So in order for us to do this compression test, first thing we need to do is remove our spark plug wires and pull out our spark plugs. Now mind you, on different vehicles this will be a different procedure, but you always need to remove the plug wires or the coils or however else your vehicle is constructed. We're going to use a 5/8 spark plug socket to go ahead and remove the spark plugs. We're going to remove all 4 spark plugs. First thing I'm going to do is go through with the ratchet, break them all loose. Then I'll just use the extension to go through here and pull out each spark plug individually. Now I'm going to lay the spark plugs out as they come out of the cylinders. Now a typical 4-cylinder engine, your firing order is going to be start with cylinder number 1 closest to the front accessory drive belts. So in the case of this Honda, the time belts, water pump, all that stuff is on the front side over here, on the driver's side. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. If it was the opposite, if all the drive belts were over on this side, it would be the opposite way. So we'll go through, pull out each spark plug. Now in addition to pulling out the spark plugs, we're going to have to go through and disable the ignition system to keep the coil from firing and sparks from arcing out of our spark plug wires. Some cars you can blow a fuse. Other cars we disconnect the coil or the ignition system. On this Honda, my distributor is right here. This pack right here of wires is my wiring harness for the ignition system. So all I'm going to do is go through and unplug that. So now my coil won't fire. I won't have any spark coming out of my plug wires. Last thing I do before I hook up my compression testing tool is to go through and disable the fuel system so that we don't have fuel spraying in the cylinder and washing down the cylinder walls. A couple ways you can go about it. You can look in the fuse box, see if there's a fuel pump fuse or a fuel pump relay. You can pull those out. On this Honda, they're not very accessible, but I do have a clear shot at the injectors, so I'm going to go through and pull each harness off the injectors. Now this is impractical for some cars because of where it's at, but on this Honda here, they're really easy to connect to. So now I'm going to get my compression tester out. If we look at the compression tester itself, we have 2 different size hoses here. If we compare it to the spark plug, we want to get the long reach one in here. So we'll take it, we're going to start with cylinder number 1. We're going to thread the adapter into the cylinder. Okay, get it snug. We're going to put our compression gauge onto that, and then we'll set this up here. And now we need to have someone go through and crank the engine over in order for us to get our reading. Typically you're going to want to go and crank the engine over for 4 compression strokes or 4 puffs. Okay, so there's 4 puffs on the compression. When we go through and look at this, we're at 160 psi of compression pressure. So now we go through, release that, we write that down, and continue going through all 4 cylinders. Once we get done, we want to see that the compression, we're going to compare the compression between the 4 cylinders. We should have the compression be within 75% of each other. Okay, so we can do the math on that. If we do find a cylinder that's low, say that cylinder number 2 is low, we can squirt some oil down inside the cylinder and go through and do a compression test again on the whole engine. Well, if the compression bumps up, we know we have a problem with our piston rings. Compression stays down, we know we have a problem with valves or something like that. Reverse side of this now, we've done our compression test. We'll go through, hook up our fuel injectors, or put in our fuel pump relay or fuel pump fuse, whatever. We'll hook up our ignition system, however we disable that. We're gonna go through, put our spark plugs in. Make sure we're using a spark plug socket that's gonna hold the spark plug in so we don't drop it. Place the spark plug back in and start tightening it by hand. Okay, it should go nice and smooth. If it starts to feel like it's cross-threaded or tough to put in, go through, pull it back out, and try again. Okay, we're going to go through, install all 4 spark plugs. Then after that, we're going to go through and tighten them down. Now when we're installing spark plugs, we want to get them tight, but we don't want to take and really crank them down and get them too tight where we're going to break something. Okay, so we're just going to go get them snug. If you don't feel comfortable with this step, go through, find out what the torque is, and use a torque wrench to torque them down. Once we tighten that down, we go through and install our spark plug wires. Now if you notice, these all 4, there are 4 separate lengths, so we know which one goes where. If they're not the same length or you feel like you're going to get confused, you can always go through and number these before you take them out. Now after we get everything put together, we'd go through and complete start it up, make sure the engine runs, and then we're all good.